Hello, this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show. We are at a clash of cultures never seen before here in our Texas counties. On the one hand, you have the vision of our Texas Democrats, where there is a constant erosion of your rights, where the Texas Democrats will make your decisions for you, and you will obediently comply. And on the other side, we have the traditions of Texas for over 100 years, where independence and self-governance is a way of life, where the spirit of 1836 and the defeat of Santa Anna's army runs through our veins. And the defense of the Alamo is our fighting spirit. These are the two ideologies at play today in our Texas counties. And these two visions cannot coexist. They are at complete odds with one another. One must stay and one must go. But it is the Texas Democrats and their totalitarian vision for the state of Texas. It is they who are celebrating their victory over the citizens of Texas. The candidacy of former President Donald J. Trump is now in question. As our court systems continue to turn into a third world kangaroo system, the former president has been convicted in this sham show trial system. As he reaches unimaginable heights, unimaginable favorability in the polls, and it appears that he is cruising to a victory in November, the Democrats potentially remove him from the race with their Banana Republic court conviction system. And as your freedom of choice continues to erode, Texas Democrats celebrate. They pop the champagne. There is no one happier with the erosion of your rights than Texas Democrats, and they shove it in your face every day. And this is not the first instance of Texas Democrats railroading a good man for simply opposing them. There is another man. This happened earlier just this year. And this man's name is Ken Paxton, and he is your attorney general. He is the top cop in the state of Texas, and he fights Democrat initiatives on a regular basis, and he has an incredible success rate of over 70% in the courts, defeating the Democrats and their lawlessness that they intend to impose on Texans. And to give you an idea of who Ken Paxton is, he today is taking on the FBI in the court of public opinion. I will read to you now a quote, a breaking news regarding Texas AG Ken Paxton. Breaking. Texas AG Ken Paxton says the FBI should be dissolved because it is filled with corruption and political influence, and it would be better to have nothing. The FBI was formed to go after organized crime, and the problem with that now is they are the organized crime. And that is Ken Paxton's words. So as others cower, as others sit in fear, Ken Paxton leads the fight against federal institutions with extreme powers that are leveraging those powers, levying them on the people of Texas. Ken Paxton sets the mold that all local representatives should follow. Every district attorney, every county sheriff, and every attorney general across the United States should be defending their citizens locally in the same way Ken Paxton is against lawlessness at the federal level. They should be fighting back against the Democrats in a legal manner. Ken Paxton is the reason that Beto O'Rourke is not your Texas governor. The Texas Democrats initiated a comprehensive mail-in ballot campaign to steal the governor's race. And Ken Paxton defeated their mail-in ballot initiatives in the courts time and time again, preventing one more stolen election by the Texas Democrats. And the Democrats, they know they cannot beat Ken Paxton. They realize they have a formidable man fighting back against them. Texas Democrats expect you to cower in their presence. They expect you to obey. And Ken Paxton will not obey. He fights back. So they attempted to impeach Ken Paxton. They did another jungle banana republic kangaroo court system against Ken Paxton, just like they're doing against Donald Trump. And this is the situation with Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton was elected 3 times by the people of Texas. He won a primary. He won a runoff. He won a general election. And it became clear that he is the choice of the people of Texas, that he is clearly favorable with the people of Texas. They want Ken Paxton as their attorney general, but Democrats do not agree. And in the state of Texas, it is Democrats that will decide what your choices are for you. So they moved to impeach Ken Paxton from office, initiating another kangaroo court trial. Texas Democrats impeached Ken Paxton. Ultimately, he survived, and he is still your Texas Attorney General. But they attempted to do the same thing to him that they are doing to President Trump right now. And I will right now read you a quote from the woman that led the fight to impeach Ken Paxton. And her name is Ann Johnson. She's a Texas Democrat, a Texas state representative out of District 134. And here's what she said, quote, "If millions of Texans cannot trust us to do the right thing right here, right now, then what are we here for?" Unquote. Ann Johnson, State Rep District 134 on the Ken Paxton impeachment. Ann Johnson is a Texas Democrat. So what she's saying is that when you elected Ken Paxton, you didn't do the right thing because you didn't do what Ann Johnson wants you to do when you elected him in the primary, in the runoff, in the general election. That doesn't count because Texas Democrats decide. Ann Johnson decides what's the right thing to do, not you. You are simply a peasant in the world of the Texas Democrats. So this is the Texas Democrat style. If they cannot win in the court of public opinion, they move to circumvent the rights of the citizens through various lawfare tactics. And now they've criminalized their political opponent. They've used this legal system to potentially imprison President Trump, and they celebrate. They pop the champagne. And these are the Democrats. And this is the thing. These Democrats, they don't live in Seattle, Washington. They don't live in Washington, D.C. They don't live in Boston or Florida. No, they live right here. They live right in Fort Bend and Harris County, and they are circumventing the rights of their neighbors, of the people they see at church, of the people they see at the gas station. You see these Texas Democrats when you're pumping your gas, when you're getting your groceries. They live in our neighborhoods. They smile to you in your face. They shake your hand, and then they stab you in the back, and they celebrate it because they resent you. And what I'm going to do right now to make my point is I'm going to read you quotes from Texas Democrats who are celebrating the fact that you potentially no longer can elect President Donald Trump to office. And the first quote is from Julie Johnson, Texas State Representative District 1115 and Texas Democrat. Here's what Julie Johnson said, quote, "Guilty on all 34 counts, exclamation point, unquote." And she posted that with an image of President Trump with the words guilty placed on his head. And that's Julie Johnson, Texas State Rep District 1115, Texas Democrat, happy that you have less of a choice in your life. And the Harris County Democrat Party, run by Mike Doyle, the county chair, they put this out on the breaking news. Quote, "Congratulations on the newly convicted felon Donald Trump. It could not happen to a more deserving guy," unquote. And that's your Harris County Democrat Party, Mike Doyle, celebrating the fact that you can no longer choose his political opponent. Representative Anna Marie Ramos out of District 102 and Texas Democrat, her quote, "Far-right Texas GOP extremists shamelessly fall in line behind a convicted felon," unquote. Anna Marie Ramos, District 102 State Rep, Texas Democrat, celebrating the fact that you have less choice in your life. Gene Wu, District 137, quote, "Do you think that Trump will sleep through sentencing," unquote. Gene Wu, with his sarcastic sense of humor, just rubbing it in your face that he's removed choices, that the Texas Democrats have removed choices from your life. And then Ron Reynolds, District 27, quote, "Proof that absolutely no one is above the law." That is, unquote, quote, "Proof that absolutely no one is above the law," unquote. Ron Reynolds, Texas Democrat, District 127. And I want you to go look up the criminal past of Ron Reynolds. And the fact that this man is celebrating, when you go look up his criminal history, okay? Who's running our country? It is the Russian philosopher, the Russian philosopher Ayn Rand, who said that when the criminals run the country, that we no longer have a country. That's where we are today. So the Democrats will shake your hand and then they will stab you in the back. And they're here locally. They're here in our local counties, and they will just remove your choices time and time again. And they'll do it as long as you continue to sit in your seat. And this is the Chris Heasley Show. And on this show, we bring you all the ideas, the content, the information that you need to take back your cities, your countries, your towns. But there's an obligation on your part, and the time is now. The inflection point is now. They're going for the win. They're removing President Trump from the ballot. The time is now to do something. And on this show, there's an obligation on your part. And the obligation is very simple. Call your Texas Democrats and begin to confront them on their constant erosion of your freedom of choice and this lawlessness that they're putting on our people. Call your Texas Democrats. And at the same time, call your county sheriff, call your district attorney, call your state attorney general, and tell them to fight back against these lawless initiatives put on us by the establishment, by the Democrat Party. And I want to make one final point. In our counties, we have a considerable population of Vietnamese, of Cuban, of Venezuelan. And these people, they've touched and got burnt by the communist element up close. Cuba, Vietnam, Venezuela. At one time, these were tropical paradises. These were peaceful areas. And what happened? They had a communist element infest their people, infest their societies. And they took what was once a peaceful kind country, and they turned them upside down. They turned them into lawless hellholes. And you can ask anyone of Cuban, of Vietnamese, and of Venezuelan descent, if I got this right. Go ask them if I got this right, because they know what this is about. And on today's show, we have two guests. We have G2 on the line. G2, are you there?
I am.
Excellent. Very good. Good to hear from you today. And we have Bach Williams in our studio. Bach, it's very good to see you.
Thank you.
And Bach has an incredible story because she's actually from Vietnam. And she was there during the Vietnam War, and she had to escape for her own life. And so she knows up front and up close what communism can do, how it can turn what was once a peaceful society on fire, how people can get hurt, people can get killed. And that's her story, of a story of survival. And with that being said, Bach, it's very good to see you today. So I want to start out and just, if you could, Bach, just tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about where you're from and your story a bit.
I am from Vietnam. I came over to this country in 1978, and I was born in the war, 1957. Let you know how old I am. But so I lived through my teenager years as, under the war. Carefree, stupid, thinking, the world is just revolve around me. And then in 1975, the communists came in. We lost the war, and my dad decided to stay back, thinking they are just Vietnamese like us. How bad can it be? We found out very quickly that it could be very, very bad. My dad's brother family is from the north, and they came in. And they told horror story of after 1954, when the country got divided, how the suffering that they. One story that I remember all the time because it was the first time I saw my dad cry. My uncle told him that when the communists came in, because my grandfather was an intellectual and owned a little bit of land, they tried him, quote and unquote, tried him in a people's court and found him guilty. So they buried him alive. My grandmother, they sentenced her to starve to death. Nobody was allowed to feed her, so she died of starvation. So that's the kind of inhuman things that happen, but the media doesn't cover it. So, being me, I don't shut my mouth. Nobody can tell me what to do. So when they came in, everybody had to go to re-education camp, brainwashing you. But I would raise my hand and sarcastically pointing out their lies. My dad got really scared because we know that if this continue, they will come to our house and arrest the whole house and throw us in jail. So I escaped. My dad, organized a boat, ship, a fishing boat for me to go. So I left. My parents stayed back so that, if I get caught, they can bribe me out. Yes, there is a lot of corruption in the communist regime. Well, I'm here. That means I escaped, well. So when I got to the Philippines, I went to France because, I was educated under the French, education system. Meanwhile, my parents left, and my dad ended up in the United States. So since I was still under, a minor, they were able to apply for me to join them legally. So it took 2 years for the application to go through, and I came to the United States in 1978, went to college. Back then, it's not too expensive. It's like $180 a semester to go to college, and I became an engineer. I met my husband, got married, and moved to Texas. Had a pretty good career, and in 2020, with the stupid COVID, I was asked to volunteer to retire. I say, great. I've worked for 34 years. I deserve a break. And we were independently, financially not too bad. But I was still not too old, so to just sit home and eat bonbons and on my rocking chair. So I decided to get involved with politics. And that's when I started to join the Fort Bend County GOP and raise a little bit of hell. So that's basically my story, how I got, here.
Well, if we can jump back, because your story is it's a very deep story, and you sort of went over it very fast. How old were you when? Let's jump back to when this. Tell me what life was like before the communists threatened your world.
My father was very wealthy. He owned 3 companies, so I was a princess, like Paris Hilton. No, very, cocoon, because the war's going on. So, my parents didn't like me for us to go out, on our own. But we had a good life. We traveled, we had maids, we had servants, and, we had a very good life. And then when the communists came in, they took my father's business away from him, nationalized. So, that's what the socialist communist is. The state owns everything, and you work for the state. One story that, I remember, the servants that we had, they came to my mom and they say, well, now that the communist is in, there's no boss, no servants anymore. My mom said, you came to work for me on your own will. You're not a slave. The door's open. You can leave. 6 months later, they came back begging for their job back. My mom said, we went through 2 rounds of exchanging monetary system. We don't have, I don't have any more money, So the question that they ask, these ladies ask, like, if there are no rich people, whom would the poor people work for? My mom say, go ask your government. So that's how it is. The rich people took a risk investing and growing a business so that we can employ the people who didn't take a risk. So, that's the thing.
So you had your father had his life savings, his wealth built up, and with a flip of a switch, he goes from having a very, very good income, very wealthy income, to being impoverished?
Yes, exactly. He had some, gold. That's what we used to escape. And, but after, they exchanged the money, took our business, we lived off of selling gold on the black market.
So was there, did you witness gunfire? Were there American troops there attempting to fend off the communists? Or what was that? What was the militant aspect of it?
Okay, and you remember what they called the Tet Offensive?
Right.
So at that time, the communists, the North Vietnamese, invaded Saigon, invaded Hue, they came down. And
the Tet Offensive was the North Vietnamese, the communists, making a surge into the South.
Yes.
Putting the Americans on their heels.
Yes. And so, I saw, rocket shooting into Saigon. I was 12 or 13 at that time. I don't remember. But one thing is, I thought it was fun, kids, because, it's like you go outside and you see the heat trail of those, rockets. It's almost like fireworks. So my brother, who was 16 at that time, and me and my other sister, we went up to the roof to watch it while everybody was in the bunker. My dad, counted head, 3 kids missing. He went up, gave my brother a good whooping. But, so, it's life was like that. But otherwise, Saigon was not, is pretty, peaceful to live in.
So tell me the story of your grandfather and grandmother. What happened to them?
I hate to talk about this because it makes me emotional, but my grandfather was an official, in his little village right north of the 17th latitude, which is, where the country was divided. So he has a little money. They were very poor. I went up there, it's like they have like a little shack. But since he had a little bit of land, he was an official. When the country got divided in 1954, they captured him. They put him in jail, and had a trial, just like what our president went through. And, it's like being an official to help people out, and then, because you don't fit into the mold, they try you and they kill you. It's like, kill you very inhumanely. They bury you up to your neck and plow over you. So that's how he died. So my grandmother, her husband gone, and she was trialed too, and her sentence was that nobody can feed her. So she was, walking in the market and trying to pick up crumbs, trash, and ate. My aunt and uncle, because they were afraid that they would be, they would get involved with that, so they didn't feed her. So I was like, if it were my mom, I don't give a flip whether or not they kill me or not. I'm going to help her. So, but eventually she died of starvation.
Yep, everything's on the line. Everything is on the line right now for the Americans. You were 17 years old, and so let's hear about your escape. I know that you were chased by pirates. Tell us the whole story of getting out of the country.
So my mom, I don't know how she did it. She took me to the meeting point, and the person that my dad arranged the fishing boat with, came and picked me up. You have kids. Imagine that you have to hand over your 17-year-old daughter to a total stranger, but there was no hope for the future. Because of what my dad did, I was not allowed to go to college. My dream was to become a doctor since I was little. So, applying for that, they asked on the applications, like, who's your father? What did he do? Who's your grandfather? What did he do? I knew if I put down what my dad was and my grandfather was, I would not be accepted. So my answer to both questions are none of your business. So obviously I didn't get accepted. So, there was no hope. I graduated second in my class, and not being able to fulfill my dreams. It's like I was mad. I was really mad. So I acted out. I acted out a lot. But thinking how my mom sacrificed and for my future, and so I got onto the boat. It's like in the very south of Vietnam, and then I put a disguise as a peasant, and got on the boat, and they put us all in under the hull because now we getting out and we might be caught. Everybody was seasick and puking everywhere. It was gross. It was so gross. But the next day, we were able to get out because we left the coast. So we followed the coastline. The thing is that my dad was a naval, merchant marine, so he taught me how to navigate for 6 months. That's what he did, how to navigate using the star, using the, and just in case, we lose the map. But, we follow the coastline, Malaysia, and I'm telling you, we docked at really poor villages. They had nothing, but they knew that we were starving. They gave us rice, dry fish, things that, is valuable to them. And, I really, really owe to the Malaysian. And we got to Singapore, but since we crossed their border illegally, they threw us in jail. So I'm an ex-con. I was in jail for 3 days, and then they let us out. After we got out of Singapore, we hit a storm, really bad storm. If you have watched that movie, The Storm, it's a scene from that. And it was pitch dark. We tied down everybody into the boat, so that we don't fall over. And I was the only one not seasick, so I drove the boat. 18-year-old girl driving a boat at night, pitch dark. But my dad told me how to navigate a storm. He said, never go against the wave. You're going to go through a roller coaster, go through the roller coaster. So it was all night long. I prayed to every god in the world. It's like...
Were you the only one on the boat?
Huh?
Were you the only one on the boat?
51 people.
Okay, but it sounds like you were driving the boat.
Yeah, I was driving the
wow.
boat. The owner of the boat was sick too. He was laying on the bench next to me. And he said, honey, make sure we don't die. And they say, I can't promise that. But in the morning, the storm stopped, and
That's amazing.
but we've lost a lot of things. We lost the map. So now we are just navigating without map, with just the sun, the moon, the stars.
So tell us about the pirates.
Okay, as we left the country and we were getting close to Thailand, south, and I was cooking in the little kitchen in the back, and suddenly the boat, sped up. And, on the boat, most people have families. I didn't have one. And there were two other guys, who didn't have a family and a priest. So we kind of formed a family unit. So one of the boys came down and told me to get back in the engine room and be quiet because we've been chased by pirates. And most of the time when the pirates catch a boat like this, they know that we have gold, we have, things. So, they heard about it. So whenever they see a Vietnamese fishing boat, they would chase it with, a lot of people on the boat. So I went back there, stayed quiet, and we still, because we were one of the few early boats, so it was still a strong boat, so we outran them. So I was lucky.
That is an amazing story. And now today you are a political activist.
Yes.
So this stuff has become who you are. Is where do you have a similar opinion to mine, where when I see this lawlessness, I see us moving in the direction of a totalitarian nightmare situation? What is your opinion?
I agree with you. The thing is that the Democrats, they are run by communists worldwide. I call them globalists. They want to control everybody. They want to take your choices away. You see that and you don't want it. My dad told me that if United States fall to communism, there's nowhere else to run to. Might as well, give up. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to fight. And remember that what you fight, how you fight, is that what can you change? How can you influence? Don't try to do things that you have no influence on. And we have influence of our local government. We build up, and that's how we do it. So, go to your county GOP, volunteer. Look at me. I'm just an old, Asian woman, English my third language, and I can do it. You can too. Just get off the computer and do something. Get mad. Get mad.
One of the things that I get frustrated with is people think that that they're that they have some bravado because they post a meme that's that's politically incorrect. It's not. That doesn't cut it anymore.
No.
You need to go to your county commissioner's court and tell them what you think about the country.
Yeah.
You need to go and go meet with your county sheriff, your county district attorney. Tell them what you think of your country, of what it's becoming. Find some courage. G2, I want to hand it over to you and see if you have any questions for Bach.
I do. Bach, nice to connect with you. I've talked to a lot of folks that have come from Vietnam, and, the American people came out of the Vietnam War with a really negative attitude, obviously, toward American soldiers and toward the country and all that. Just a quick side note, I was in Song Mai village one day with a VC officer, and he said, yes, your troops killed a lot of people here. We killed 3,000 of our own at the Citadel. And I think what was really lost on people is that there were horrors on both sides of that war. But what happened to the Vietnamese people was incredibly tragic, huge amounts of loss. And so afterwards, if you look at what happened in the United States Civil War, there was sort of an attempt at least to try to heal. It took a while, but there was an attempt. But these re-education camps that you were subjected to, what was the focus of those? What were they trying to teach you?
They were trying to teach me that the American empire are evil. And Ho Chi Minh, the bastard Ho Chi Minh, is saved the country. So we have to revere him. We have to give everything to the country to rebuild it, sacrifice. It's just like, here you're like, just give away your money as tax. Give it all. And,
So when you...
and they
when
tell...
you look at,
Yeah?
Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
No, but, and they tell you stories that are lies, total lies. And, one thing is like, like the media during that time is not portraying things honestly. It's gotten worse, but when I came over here and I saw what was reported, I was like, that's not true. It's not true. It's a bunch of lies.
In the War Crimes Museum in Hanoi, they have a picture of a guillotine, or they have a guillotine there. They talk about the last Vietnamese communist that was killed at the guillotine by the French, which I believe occurred in 1954. And then the guide says, this guillotine was used later by the Americans. And I said, wait a minute. If that was the last person killed by the guillotine, how could the Americans have used it later? And this delightful woman leans over and says, that's not true. That's just what we're told to tell you. Okay,
Yes.
thanks. So the parallels, though, between what you saw there and this story where they'll stand right there at a museum and tell you something that is self-evident that it's a lie. And what we're seeing in our corporate media today,
Yes.
where I think it's very hard to find anything we're told that's true, and we're being told sacrifice everything, pay taxes, even if those taxes take you out of your home.
Yep.
Even if those taxes are too much to bear, pay these taxes and surrender your rights to the state. Is the parallel that I think I'm seeing what you are seeing as you look at the United States today, the story from the Democrat Party and the globalists, and what you saw from the Vietnamese communists back then?
Okay, it started, under the war. They took over. They have a very good propaganda system. That's what the communists do. They have a very, very strong propaganda. So they took over media. BBC spread lies. I remember, thinking, BBC, is unbiased, so we need to listen to them and all that stuff. My elder sister did that, but when you really see the truth, it's a bunch of propaganda. And that's the first thing communists take over is media, so that they can brainwash you. And then the second one are children. So, you can see right now, they have been taking over our education system, K to 12, brainwashing them, telling them if you're white, you are, evil. You're not good. I remember when they came in, I have to join the youth movement, and they asked me to snitch on my parents. What did they say at home? Come tell us. Things like that.
Mm-hmm. Similar things to what we're seeing develop in our school systems today.
Yes.
Where there are programs like this thing called KOOTH, K-O-O-T-H, where children are going to be given psychological counseling and guidance that their parents will not be told about.
Yes.
Where it is portrayed today in our culture that the school and the teachers and the administration, those are safe people, and your parents are dangerous. Mm-hmm. So you can confide in your teachers, and they'll lie to your parents about things like your gender and your name.
Yes.
It is, I see these tremendous parallels, and of course, then we come to what happened this week with Donald Trump, or last week with Donald Trump, and there's a tremendous parallel there. The kind of trial that people like Peter Navarro have been put through, and all these January 6 people and Donald Trump, these are not trials that could have ever happened in the past in American history. they would have never been tolerated.
No.
Are you seeing those similar to the kind of show trials that were held by the communists in Vietnam?
Okay, so when they came in, they told the South Vietnamese officers, come and register with us. Nothing is going to happen to you. Nothing. Trust us. So we were dumb and stupid. The officers went and registered, and they got thrown onto trucks and driven away to the education camp. They call it the New Economic Development, which is in the boondoggie, in the jungle, with malaria, with all sorts of, disease. And the family would not know what happened to those people, to the officers, to their husband, to their sons. My sisters, my two elder sisters, had their husband taken away like that for months and months. We did not know what happened to them. Were they killed? Where were they? Nothing. Nothing at all. Until the day that I left, we did not know where one of my brother-in-law was. My cousin, was the same thing happened. And it was like a year or two, I don't remember because I was out of the country, that when my sister knew where her husband was. And, scurvy, where you lose your teeth, a lot of them happen to them. So you will be let out of the re-education camp if you behave. If you don't behave, you stay there. So there was no sentence, no end to what can happen to you. So,
So when you think about what happened then, I mean, now today in the United States, totally inconsistent with our Constitution, we have people who have been in jail for 3.5 years.
Yes.
Over this thing on January 6th, and there's no trial. They've had no trials. And it is specifically in the Constitution that can't be, that you must have a right to a speedy trial.
Yes, and they've been there. That's the same thing. It's up to the government to let you out or not let you out, depending on how you behave.
Given this history and knowledge that is just part of our Vietnamese American community, how much support is there for Donald Trump in that community?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story. In 2020, that's when I started to, get involved. So I said, I'm going to go register Vietnamese people to go vote. Mm-hmm. So we set up a booth every Saturday and Sunday from August onto October. So most of the people that I encountered, they have very little information about how government works and things like that. But one common thing is that, say, vote for Trump, right? Vote for Trump, right? And they say, yes, but you also have to vote for the Congress and all that stuff. But, for them, Trump is everything. If you go, any candidate that shows that they don't support Trump will not get our vote. Like right now, it's like all about Trump. We are very upset that, our president got this sham conviction, but it's getting us more mad. And, I think they made a mistake here,
I think they did too.
They made a mistake.
I'm hearing this reaction in every community. It's funny when the corporate media and propagandists and the globalists talk about Trump, they always say he's a white supremacist and only white supremacists support him. Is the Vietnamese community full of white supremacists?
I'm looking at my skin color is olive.
Hey, I have a question.
Okay.
What would if in your youth, your Vietnam, when you were a child, what would they have done if a Donald Trump type of figure had arisen up out of the community and ran for office?
It would have full support. Right now,
but what would the other side have done? Would they have allowed it?
They would kill him.
Yeah.
They would kill him.
Yeah.
And that's one. I don't want to say this right now, but I hope that he has his own security people, not the one that the government give him. Because
Right.
I don't trust anything the government's doing for Donald Trump right now. But we will die for him.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But like funny you ask, people in Vietnam right now love Donald Trump too. They love him.
Well, clearly the Texas Democrats have to do something about it because it looks like they're going to lose, so they have to make their moves.
But the thing is that we have to remember that it's not only voting for Donald Trump, it's voting all the way down. Down ballot, our judiciary, candidates, we need to support them. We need to.
So do you want to talk about what your political activism is now? I think it's really remarkable. We've heard her story. It's an incredible story. And she's built this up into where she went through this life experience and she took that energy, that experience, and turned it into becoming an activist. And she's very Bach Williams is very influential in Fort Bend County. Am I right?
Influential.
You are. I think you are.
Okay.
I mean, I won't say the name of one candidate who's no longer a candidate, but I think he thinks you are. So, but tell me about what you do now politically, your activism.
Okay, I am a precinct chair. Precinct chair, our main job is to get out the vote, know our constituents, make sure that they go out to vote. And also I go and try to convert the swing voters, not by being in their face, but by asking them what are their values. And you'll be surprised how much the values align with the conservative value. I'm not saying Republican, I'm saying conservative values. And it's a little bit, and you point out things that's happening in life right now, you can convert them. Don't get in their face. That's something, whenever you get in people's face, you turn them off right away. I am also a Precinct 1 captain, which means I try to help all the precinct chairs in Precinct 1. If they have a question, they need to, they want to know how to become more effective, I'm here. Actually, I'm for all precinct chairs in Fort Bend. I am also the vacancy committee chair. Well, what does that mean is that, I look at empty precinct, vacant precinct, and I go out and recruit, people to do that. So you can find out whether or not your precinct have a precinct chair or not. Go to Fort Bend County GOP, fbcgop.org. Look for your precinct, and if you don't have a precinct chair, contact me. I would love to have you do it. Right now we have about 90-something precinct chair out of 130-something. So we still have a lot of empty, vacant precinct. So please call me. You can be effective. You can volunteer as much or as little as you want. There are different kind of, volunteerism that you can do. You can make phone calls. You can block walk for candidates. You can join clubs that are active. The Republican Women of Katy, which I belong to, is very active. I am also the activism chair to teach people how to be active. So, that's how I just want, it's grassroots. Basically, grassroots will win. So,
Yes, I mean, the grassroots have been incredibly effective over the past year.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
One thing, after you get a person elected, you keep an eye on them. Getting them in office doesn't end there. You have to watch and make sure that they are going to do the work that you put them there for. Otherwise, we will replace you in primary.
We have a large number of constitutional Republicans heading into the general election, and a good number of them are going to win. And absolutely, once they get into office, the the pressure on them to succumb to the establishment is going to be immense, and they will. The only reason they won't do it is if they know at the same time the grassroots is there, watching them as well. So it's
Call them whenever they mess up. Scold them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a far reacher. I mean, I want to see constitutionalists start challenging in the Democrat Party as well. I want to take back both parties.
Yeah.
But G2, we got 5 minutes left. Do you have any questions for Bach? Do you want to talk about the what they've done to President Trump? The floor is yours.
Well, I think it's really interesting. I if you look at a photograph of the crowd that was present on January 6th in Washington, D.C., you will see a bunch of these yellow flags everywhere. Now, is that a flag you're familiar with?
Yes, the yellow flag with the 3 red stripe. Yellow is our skin color, and the 3 red stripe represent the 3 regions in Vietnam that have suffered through a lot of wars, blood.
And it wasn't just 1 or 2 of these
no.
flags in those photographs.
No,
it was hundreds.
Oh yes.
So this support for Donald Trump goes back a long time, and I've had this conversation with people that came from Eastern European countries who know what the Soviet Union was, and I've had this conversation with people from China who know what China was, and I keep hearing that they are outraged in 2 ways. One, they're outraged that the United States is becoming what they ran away from, what they escaped, and what they fled, and they see it every day. It seems to be a consistent theme. And the other thing it seems that they're angry about is that the American people are letting it happen. Because not having had that experience, never knowing war, never really knowing economic deprivation or a system where the justice system was really simply a tool of a political party as it is becoming in the United States, they just don't understand that what we have in the United States is extraordinary. In fact, not ordinary at all, but quite extraordinary.
You're so right.
And am I about getting this right? What are your thoughts?
Yes. The thing is that it started out with school. My daughter was very upset that when she was in high school, they did not teach about the Vietnam War. They skimmed through it very quickly. One thing also I would like to mention, Venezuelan, the new Venezuelan that came over here legally, that were, oppressed by the dictatorship.
Hugo Chavez.
Yeah, and they are registered voters now, first-time voters. We need to reach out to them. We need to teach them to be activists. And I am starting with Fort Bend County, Venezuelan. So I'm forming a group for that. I think I was able to flip 100 Venezuelan vote in the primary, because they were not informed, so I informed them of what happened.
That's
now,
excellent.
It's interesting. With Venezuela, there are 2 distinct differences. One group are the criminal element that has come over here.
Recently.
As you may know,
yeah,
the murder rate in Venezuela is going down as they empty the prisons and drive everybody to the United States. But that's the criminal element. The people who escaped Hugo Chavez and what came after, the Chavistas took over, are very much like the Vietnamese and the Poles and the Russians and the others, the Chinese who've come here and love this country, the real patriots.
Yes.
And it is interesting to watch how much they value this country and then compare it to the average American who simply seems to be unaware. And I guess it's just a lack of perspective. But if you lived in Venezuela during that time, you saw the media collapse, completely captured, completely controlled. But it is eerie to see the same here. Our media is controlled by one party or by one group of people, the globalists.
The globalists.
They have a tremendous influence in the Republican Party. They have absolute control of the Democrat Party. And they have the most radical of agendas. And it just seems as if the American folks aren't seeing it. But you and others who have come here, who've lived through this, and whose parents taught them the stories of what happened in their old country, it's clear to them. So now we're looking at this situation where Trump is potentially, now a convicted felon. We expect it to be overturned on appeal. Will that shake any of the support in the Vietnamese community for him? Will they now say, wait a minute, he's been convicted, we're going to back off, we don't support him? let's find a new candidate.
Not one iota chance that it's going to happen, because we know what happened, is a sham, that it's a political thing, and they are matter that, that the system is doing this to their beloved Donald J. Trump.
That's excellent. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up there. I want to thank both of you. I want to thank G2 for calling in. It was an incredible hour. I want to thank Bach Williams and sharing your incredible story. We so appreciate what you're doing in Fort Bend County and your experience. And this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show. We will be back here on Monday at 1 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Thank you.